Hi, and welcome back to Continual Fandom. Tonight we are tackling one of our favorite and most diverse actors. And to quote him, I'm not a conventional leading man, and I have no wish to be. We're here to talk about the one and only, if you can't tell, Tim Curry. I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and let's dive into this morass. And we're going to see who else has joined us for this party. Michael, you are up first.
Thank you. I'm Michael J. Allen, Star-Lord, professional goofball, and USA Today bestselling author of pretty much every kind of science fiction fantasy there.
Elizabeth.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Davis. I'm one half of Deadfish Books, the teeny tiniest micropress you'll ever meet.
Jamie.
I'm Jamie Garner. I write professionally as J.B. Garner and Amelia Quantrill. I'm also a professional editor and quite a bit of a movie buff.
Jenny.
How'd you do, I? See, you've met my faithful moderator, man. Couldn't help it. I'm Gini Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Dog Books. I also write under a variety of other pen names and in all lengths and genres, and if you could not tell, I'm a huge Tim Curry fan.
And she brought the lips tonight. So, Lola, you're up next.
My name's Lola Lariscy. I'm a writer, and my claim to fame is I was in the Film Society at the University of Alabama at Birmingham in the early 90s, and I was Dr. Scott in two of our movie productions. I had toilet paper and hot dogs thrown at me. Be jealous. It's fine. I know. You've only been me.
I was Meatloaf for 6 seasons. I get it. So, I have slipped and busted my ass on stage more times than I'll admit because somebody hosed it down with water sprayers. So, I'm going to start with an easy one. Michael, you're going to be up first for this one. You get one and only one. What is your most favorite number one iconic role for you for Tim Curry? And
Legend.
Why?
Well, beyond the fact that it's just a fantastically produced fantasy movie, his portrayal of Big Dark was just as convincing as he was in as Frankenfurter. I mean, he was like everything Tim does. He was just incredibly accurate, on point.
And the only thing that makes that film redeemable.
Well, unless you like really young, pretty Tom Cruises.
Now, Mia Sara.
Or Mia Sara's.
Can't stand Tom, but that's a different
right,
brand.
but she only did 2 movies, so.
She's a poet now. I looked it up. I went down a rabbit hole. And she's married to Brian Henson. I didn't know that. I didn't get my invite. What happened?
Yeah, I would know on the Tim Curry panel. We go off the edge. Mrs. Davis, would you be so kind as to share with us your most iconic Tim character?
I would say it's Frankenfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, because my introduction to that was actually the soundtrack first. So I learned his voice before I actually saw the movie. I'd say maybe 6 years before I saw the movie, not beforehand, if not longer.
Jamie, how about you?
Well, I'm going to go for a popular pick, though I have many, so I have to go into one, and that would be Wadsworth from Clue. Clue itself is just obviously a massive ensemble, amazing comedy mystery caper, but I think Tim Curry's kind of the glue that holds it all together, especially in some of the many endings, so standout performance. 10 out of 10.
Jenny?
You couldn't guess from my intro, Frankenfurter. Rocky Horror hit my reasonably small Southern California town when I was about 15 and a half. And even though it was an R, I was on dates. So I got in without a problem. And I still remember the first time I saw it, I didn't get it off. I did not understand it, but I got dragged back a second time and fell madly in love with everything about it, particularly Tim Curry. His portrayal is so amazingly sexy and amazingly on point that it just that's make a generation open to a lot of things we wouldn't have been open to otherwise.
Lola?
I mean, it's so hard to choose between two movies, but I have to choose Rocky Horror Picture Show because that was such a seminal point in my life. I was a virgin until I was 19. And I watched it because I was part of the film society, and I was going to be Dr. Scott, and I just couldn't stop watching it. I watched it over and over again. I had the box soundtrack that had the stage version and the film version, and it had like the extra song and all that. Had that. I would listen to it over and over again. And Frankenfurter was just so awesome. I'd never seen a character like that in my life. I mean, he was so just sure of himself in his own sexuality, never any questions, he just wanted it all. And I wanted to worship him. Like if he were a cult leader, I'd be there. No amount of deprogramming would help me. I'd be like, here, you can have my bank account, with the $200 or whatever. You can have it all. And he's that convincing. And even at the end where he's all like mascara and blue eyeshadow running, you're like, I'm sorry, but please don't kill me, but I'm sorry. So he was just so spectacular. I will always remember that.
Well, I don't think we can talk about Tim Curry without getting a good start on, of course, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And because Tim is Rocky. Tim defines Rocky. And there was so much stuff around bringing it from stage. And this is really the role that got him set into a career. Definitely would not be the most traditional role. But if we also look at some of the other key players that are in this movie, how could not be? So, Elizabeth, I want you to kind of go through, what does the Frankenfurter character, how does that work for you?
Frankenfurter character, how that works for me is that he is a queer icon with a lot of fun, and that was something that we did not have a lot of in the 90s and early 2000s was fun queer icons. Gay rights was serious business, and being gay is a serious angst.
Jamie?
So we're focusing entirely on Frankenfurter. Okay.
Well, we're talking about Tim and Frankenfurter and
that's kind of my comment on the whole movie is that it's a lot of goofy fun. I might have made a comment that a surprising amount of the songs from the soundtrack also are songs you could play at a children's birthday party without anyone noticing.
Yes. Well, Transylvania, maybe not the.
I said a surprising amount, not the entire playlist.
I don't know.
You guys know how to math? So, James.
Well, Frankenfurter, it is an iconic role, obviously. I almost feel like I wasn't prepared for the question. That's okay. I think one of the big thing about Frankenfurter in general is, one thing is, it is a queer character just allowed to be bad, which, but not in a kind of in a hand-wringing villainous way, but in a understandable way, like a camp way that isn't
a wink at the
a lot
camera
of times.
Way.
What?
A wink at the camera way.
Yes. We're often portrayed as either we have to be good so you don't offend anybody, or for a while we were portrayed as absolute monsters, satanic villains. Frankenfurter and the entire ilk, the entire manor full of people was, there's that fun camp, they're the bad guys, but also kind of not, and there is fun while there is also horror. It's one of the first times we were portrayed in that way, I think. So that lends a certain iconicness to it.
Jenny?
Oh, you youngins are so adorbs. In 1977, this film came out. There was nothing like it. Okay. No one looked at this as a queer icon. No one looked at this as queer or gay. We looked at it as something amazing and different. It never had a straight theatrical run. It was always a midnight movie. And it bombed until it turned into the midnight movie that made it a cult classic. And that's done pretty much literally on Tim Curry's charisma, because the rest of it, without him, you're looking at, Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick in very early roles. You're looking at, at Patricia Quinn in a very early role, and so on and so forth. Everybody in there, even Meatloaf, is very young in their careers. And so it's a giant risk. And the thing that makes it pay off is Tim Curry's charisma that keeps that going, so that you're not questioning. Again, I want to stress, I was in a small town, an agricultural town in Southern California when this came out. And one of the guys I was dating, this won't shock anybody, who later came out as gay. But he cosplayed. We would all dress up and dance and do this stuff. This is like a really early example of all of the culture that we all embrace right now that wasn't around. Okay. It was not mainstream. It was not around, but this movie came and slid into midnight movies showings. It kept a lot of smaller, independent movie theaters alive, as the big conglomerates were coming on. This movie's done a lot. And again, it's all on Curry's charisma. Without a really charismatic Frankenfurter, that movie does not make it. And we don't have this panel. We aren't talking about the movie. We're not talking about, men in teddies and high heels. We're not talking about all the other stuff, because Tim Curry, that, like Jim said, that was his launch board. So, that icon that you guys are like, oh, that wasn't there. That came out in the 70s, children. Okay. It's been around for a long time. You all didn't find out about it until you were a little older and it had been around for a while. But it's around for you because of the midnight movies. And again, it's because of Tim Curry's massive charisma. I got to see him on stage in Me and My Girl, and the charisma just flowed off of him there. He is an incredibly charismatic actor, and that's what saved this from being an obscure, I'm trying to be counterculture and really get some information across into the cult classic that it is today, that probably, I think probably everyone in what we would call fandom has seen this movie at least once.
I just wanted to say real quick that I noticed, actually, I was at an interesting point with this movie, which is when it stopped being solely midnight viewings, because the internet came into being and everyone started uploading everything onto YouTube.
And it's available on DVD and all this stuff. And it's not the same movie when you watch it at home without a theater of people throwing rice.
I actually prefer watching it at home compared to the show. I know that makes me
girl, I was double digits before I was 20. So no, there's nothing quite. That's, for me, that's still the one true theater experience. Watching Rocky Horror with a group of other people where we're all reacting in the same way. We're reciting the same comeback lines. We're throwing the same stuff. Everybody's there out of love and fun. That's the movie experience I miss. And that just doesn't exist outside of seeing Rocky Horror in a theater.
So Lola, what's Tim Curry and the Frankenfurter experience for you as you follow your cult leader?
First of all, he's just so handsome, so hot, so sexy. And I wanted to be Brad, Janet, both of them. I just wanted that so badly, so badly. He's just so sexy. And just even when he looks at you through the screen, you're like, oh, he sees me. So, but aside from that, I mean, he gave me and my friends like the opportunity to play with how we dress. My male friends, my gay friends, my trans friends would, they would just play with the way they dress. And I got to, I would be a Transylvanian if I wasn't actually doing the show. I'd just be a Transylvanian. I got to wear all kinds of crazy clothes. And there was no shame in it, none whatsoever. I mean, you were actually fitting in when you did that, and it was a really neat feeling. It's like, being in Alabama, it's like, and then you go to Taco Bell afterwards and everyone's staring at you, but whatever. But it was just a really cool experience when there wasn't, like Ginny said, there wasn't anything else like it.
Michael, how about you?
My.
What is your Transylvanian experience?
Well, I had the honor of actually playing Frankenfurter up on the stage in front of the film during the mid '80s, back when I was still young enough to look really good in fishnets. And what I've always loved about Tim is the charisma. I mean, getting to do that, getting to bust out of my shell and learn that being a little quirky, raising an eyebrow, and being myself was acceptable in an era where, nerds and geeks were basically the prime target of the football team. So, I mean, while I don't come from it from an LGBTQ origin point, it was still a lesson in being yourself. And, again, being up on stage, which up to that point, I probably wouldn't have thought was possible, particularly in that outfit.
So, Carole, tell us about your time as portraying the one and only Tim Curry in Rocky Horror. Tell us about your experiences being Frankenfurter.
Oh, gosh.
Or do an introduction, whichever one you want to go with first.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes, a.k.a. Ellis Colton. As Carole, I'm a frequent ConTinual panelist. And as Ellis Colton, I am an MM romance writer. I apologize for being late. I'm in a different time zone today. And so I don't know where I am or when I am, but now I'm here. So hi, y'all. Thanks for letting me play on this panel. I am a huge Tim Curry fan. I think the first thing I saw him in was, oh gosh, now I have to think. I mean, it may have been it. And then I backtracked or saw him in things as they came along, but absolutely love him. How do you not adore that voice, right? I mean, when you think deep, rich, and fruity, you think Tim Curry. Of course, I loved him as Frankenfurter. And I tell you what, I was really late to the whole Rocky Horror thing. I never saw it in the theater. I never threw the toast and, all that stuff. But man, that man threw himself into that and played it to the hilt. And I don't think anyone can ever, other people can portray that role and they might do a splendid job, but nobody will ever be Tim Curry as Frankenfurter.
So I'll throw this out there to you too. What is your favorite quintessential Tim Curry film?
He is such a chameleon. So it's really hard because he was the obnoxious drunkard, brother, boyfriend, whoever he was in Annie, I mean, when I saw him in Annie, I was like, what? He's played good guys and bad guys. And of course the butler and Clue. And really, I guess, I'm going to have to go with Pennywise. I absolutely adored him in Pennywise. He scared the pants off of me. I watched it the first time Home Alone. I know, right? And the menace he conveys is so palpable. It's so present and oh my gosh. So yeah, I would have to say Pennywise.
Well, let's move a little bit forward. I'm certain that Frankenfurter will, as always, reemerge somewhere in this conversation. But in the filmography, we jump forward to 85 and we have this back to back. We have the Lord of Darkness and the Butler of Darkness. I mean, we're of course talking about Legend versus Clue. Legend was probably the first film I saw him in. And was just, that was an enthralling thing to see that level of drama and not necessarily malevolence, but just that pure joyous evil, and so much fun of a role. So Jamie, I'm gonna throw this one to you. You know, in terms of characters and making that leap from, Frankenfurter, you can see elements of that coming through because, again, still so early in career. But, where did you land on Legend?
Well, Legend has a lot of bad, but Tim Curry wasn't, and The Lord of Darkness were not the bad parts of that movie. Um, I personally really love a villain that loves being evil and embodies that, and like Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, same sort of jaw, but with that Tim Curry charisma, which does shine through all of the prosthetics, because that's always a thing sometimes, and you just layer so many practical effects on actors, sometimes they get lost in it, but he didn't. So that alone like speaks a lot of it. But yeah, no, I'm like, when he's on screen, I'm cool. Rest of the movie, ow. But they went for it. They tried. He succeeded. They tried.
Jenny?
Okay, my husband and I were dating, probably / engaged at the time those came out. And his middle brother, my husband's the eldest of three, went and saw Legend and came back and said, I don't care how much Jenny loves Tom Cruise or Tim Curry, tell her not to see this movie. So I never have, because I listened to my brother-in-law. At the time it came out, literally everybody was like, the special effects are horrific, and what they've done to Tim Curry is ludicrous. And if you just look at a couple stills, it's really agreeable. I love Tim Curry and I love Tom Cruise, and I've never seen it. So, and while I'd say I could,
you have homework.
Huh?
You have homework.
No, I don't, because I don't think I need to see it. I'm perfectly willing to say that I'm sure Tim Curry did a fabulous job. I'm perfectly willing to say I'm sure I would have thought Tom Cruise was very adorable. And I like Mia Sara in Time Cop, and I'm done. I'll watch Time Cop again, which I really liked. But no, I don't take peer pressure for watching a movie that my family warned me away from, and someone who actually understands my tastes.
So Lola, since that was the longest answer in history to say I've not seen it.
You got to make it work, man. I mean, let's face it. If I'm going to go with Wadsworth, I mean, that's...
we're coming to Wadsworth. Get over it.
Right.
I even held Wadsworth for you.
I love Wadsworth. I love Clue. Clue's one of my favorite movies. All right. So I was 14 when Legend came out. And I want you to know, after the movie in the theater, I was like waltzing down the aisle like I was Mia Sara in the black goth outfit. I was like, so I loved it at the time. I was 14. And I just wanted to be Mia Sara. She was so beautiful in the black, outfit with the thing coming up and everything. Tom Cruise sucked. Whatever. I'm sorry, Jenny, but he was awful.
My brother-in-law told me not to see it. I wisely listened.
He's only in there because he was Tom Cruise. But I was scared.
It wasn't Tom Cruise yet.
Yeah, he was. Well, he'd had Risky Business, so he was getting to be Tom Cruise. But what was I saying?
You want to be Mia Sara? Waltzing down.
I wanted to be Mia Sara. I loved her so much in that. And I was actually scared by Tim Curry's darkness character because they made him seem huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, his whole face took up the screen and it looked really scary. And to 14-year-old me, it didn't seem like prosthetics. It seemed like it was actually his face. And he's got that voice, that lovely dark, I can't do it, but that dark voice that just makes me chatter and ramble and all that stuff. And I was just like enamored. I mean, everybody else was like Labyrinth. I was like, yeah, I like that too. But Legend, oh my God. And I just, I loved it so much. So I rewatched it. I paid $4.99 or whatever on Amazon, and I rewatched half of it yesterday, and I was like, This is awful. So yeah, I mean, I understand why I liked it when I was 14, but I also understand why I didn't like it as much now because it was ridiculous.
All right, Carole.
I watched Legend way back when because, you know, it was looked to be like some kind of exciting fantasy adventure, you know, whatever movie. And I remember thinking, this is really, really bad. And after that, I wiped it from my brain cells. And that's all I can tell you about it.
That's fair.
It was bad. And my brain said, I don't need this no more. And kicked it out.
Yeah. Like the unicorns, just put it out to pasture. Sorry, unicorns.
All right, Michael. Are you two landing in the pastures with Legend?
Oh man, I still love Legend. I've got collector's editions and everything of it. But you know, every fantasy movie was awful in the 80s. They didn't know how to do them. But on Tim's role, I mean, it's just another excellent example of presence and timing. The way he spoke the words, the way he embraced the script is really what made the movie. I mean, it's the same thing with Frankenfurter, Wadsworth, Dr. Poole. I mean, it's just it's his calling card. That presence and timing.
Elizabeth?
I have not seen the movie because I have yet to stumble across it on a bad movie night. If someone wants to sponsor me to see the movie, feel free to send your money to Dead Fish Books or to contact the ConTinual moderators on making that happen.
We'll take your cash.
Yeah, they will take your cash. They might take more than your cash. I can't make any promises. I can say one thing. For all the memes and references I've seen in the movie, it has only been the Tim Curry's character. I knew nothing else about that movie until this panel.
There's nothing else to know.
I thought he was the character.
Good point. Good point.
We're going to leap forward, and I'm going to make Jenny happy. This will be the last time ever. Glue. Our Wadsworth. Because again, I think that in Clue, he was the glue that held the film together, as you know, as we've talked about. So, Jenny, Wadsworth, I'm just going to let you take it on and go forth and conquer.
And on 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 and
No,
on.
you got a time limit. You got a time limit.
Yeah. So, he made the movie. Well, he makes every movie. But Wadsworth is the glue, and especially because in theatrical release, Clue had 3 endings, and we didn't know which one we were going to get, which definitely drove multiple viewings, which we went to. And my favorite viewing is the real one. But I like all of them, and he's just so fun. He makes it more of a fun movie. I mean, it's a movie based on a board game, okay? And while we have a lot of those now, we did not have a lot of those then. And again, this is something that is leaping what your audience's expectations are and leaping them forward into something that now you can say, I'll make a movie from a video game, or I'll make a movie for a board game, and have a hope of it actually being successful. Clue has a lot to do with that. It was very engaging. It was very fun. There was a lot of talk about it. And because it is an ensemble and they had fabulous actors, I think the movie would have worked even with somebody else just because it's a great ensemble cast. But Curry's energy level and his clear enjoyment of the role, once again, his charisma makes it all go. Because Wadsworth is your glue character. He is the one about racing around and bounding around and doing everything crazy and everything fun. And it's just one of those things that you need the right actor. And he isn't the only actor that probably could have done that role, but he was absolutely the best actor for that role at that time, especially because he really wasn't bringing in anybody from Legend, but he was bringing in everyone from Rocky Horror. And that was very big because, again, movie about a board game. So there's no guarantee that's going to work at all, and yet it did.
Lola?
First of all, it's one of my favorite movies. I was rewatching it today, and it's so funny. I mean, there's so many in jokes and just quips. The communism was a red herring, and I didn't know what that meant when I was 14. I had to like figure it out. I think I went to our encyclopedias or something and figured it out. I was like, oh, because I thought they were talking about fish. I'm like, well, is communism like fish? So I learned something. It's educational. But I noticed something when I was rewatching it today. There you can kind of there are parts of Rocky Horror that almost kind of match Clue. When you think about it, there's a big mansion somewhere in America. It's a dark and stormy night. A motorist comes and knocks on the door. I was like, well, heck, I wonder if they meant that or if it just happened that way. I thought it was kind of cool, but it's so hilarious. And Wadsworth, he's so hyper. He's got so much energy because you need that because everyone's just running around. There's just so much, screaming and just running into each other. And he leads it. He's in the forefront. He's charging. He is their captain. And he's just great.
Carole?
I mean, I just have to kind of chime in with all of those. It's certainly a more lighthearted role than, Frankenfurter is a lighthearted role, but in a really kind of dark, kinky way, and this is just, much more almost like a farce with the running around and people are popping in and out of doors and everything. But they're all interacting in various groupings, but he's interacting with everybody. So that's where you get that, the continuity of what's going on. And he always knows more than he says. And he's always kind of got that arch air of like, haha. And it's just really fun. He's so deft. His comedic timing is just so on point always that whether it's more of the dark humor or more of this lighter humor, it always really resonates with you because, again, he's inhabiting it fully. You never get the sense of like he's only, in it for the money, or he's only like giving 75% of himself. Tim Curry, it's 100% all the time, and that's a lot of what makes him so delicious.
Michael?
One of the things I like about Tim's performance of Wadsworth is the frenetic antics balanced so perfectly with the I'm an upper crust butler. Because the serious lines, combined with just the running around, it's such a balancing act. He does it so very, very well.
Elizabeth, anything you want to add?
The only thing I was going to add was that compared to his previous roles, I appreciate that he managed to maintain his energy level even when he's stepping back to let the ensemble cast shine. Because you might notice that quite a few times include that we have Wadsworth just making some snarky comments in the background while we're focusing on another character in a scene, which doesn't happen so much in the movies before then. And whenever he's in a scene in Rocky Horror Picture Show or from the Silent Pet Legend, he is dominating that scene.
Jamie?
Ditto for a lot. I mean, there's a lot of, but to add some unturned over ground, I think the true bit of genius in addition to everything else is that he pulled together. Now, obviously, you have to credit like directors and writers with this too, but the way how he managed to, and all the cast, but I think him in particular, especially with the true ending, balances the fact that it all works. Like you have the main movie, and yet his performance as Wadsworth connects with his very different role in two endings, and then it doesn't. You don't go, that doesn't hold together. It makes sense no matter which ending you get, because these two very different roles in two of the endings, almost diametrically opposed, and yet still works. And a lot of that comes down to the performance and charisma and intensity that he, hits the role with.
Now, there's one other iconic role before we turn loose the freewheeling mosh pit this is going to become. But the judge, which is me, has decided that the made-for-TV movie It counts as a filmography, a film, and a movie. We cannot escape talking about Tim Curry and not talk about Pennywise. So Lola, knowing that, you were in love with Pennywise, and insert snarky comment here.
We all float down.
Because I think for a lot of people, that was kind of that really iconic role that just cemented so many things of making Tim Curry as that iconic actor. So I'm going to throw this to you about the glorious Pennywise.
Scary as F-U-C-K. Sorry, Ginny, I didn't take your fire. Scary as all get out. I mean, Stephen King stuff is already scary, but you think about you're just looking down a drain and there's these clown eyes looking at you, and little boy is stolen. It's a poor little boy. And he's so scary. And it's like, please don't take me. I mean, do take me, but please don't take me. I'd much rather Frankenfurter take me than Pennywise. Pennywise is just scary as heck. And I don't think I was allowed to see it when I was little, but I know I saw it at some point, probably at a friend's house or something. And I just remember just like trembling and being like, I would go home. I don't want to do this anymore. So yeah, very effective.
Carole?
Now, this is actually where on this particular one, I saw the 2-part miniseries movie before I had read the book. I had not read the book yet, so I didn't know the story at all. I was interested in it, though, because it was a Stephen King story. And also, it had like an impressive list of actors. They were all, actors I liked, actors I wanted to see in something. Thought it was an interesting ensemble that had been put together. So I was already enjoying it, and then Pennywise comes along, and even in his jolly guise, he's scary. Like, even when he's not being overtly threatening with like all the pointy teeth, he's scary. Like, you just don't get a good feeling from him. And when he starts doing stuff, like when they're looking at that old picture and then he's like moving up in the street and then he's like in your face. I mean, it's not just that it's a jump scare, it's the threatening aura that he brings with him. He's wearing it all the time. It says, it's right there along with his wig. So, he's trying to be sometimes he's enticing, but of course we know it's bad. And he manages to get it as he's got this, he's trying to seduce these kids into coming with him and stuff. And you can just hear that note, that dark little evil note at the bottom of his voice that you're like, oh crap, this is really, really bad. It's really, to me, it's a masterful performance, and I enjoyed all of it. And yes, the effects look a little dated now and stuff, but I watched it like earlier this year because I just liked watching it. And he still is, I mean, I've seen it so many times. I'm a grown up woman, everything, but he is still menacing. You're just like, man, this is not somebody I would ever want to meet, like ever. I'm perfectly happy to see him on the screen. And I actually could not bring myself to see the new one. really like Bill Skarsgård. I think he's a terrific actor, but I'm like, I can't see someone else as Pennywise. It's got to be Tim Curry.
I didn't like the ending anyways. I thought it was a cop out. You made a right decision.
Michael?
Well, as I avoid horror like summer roadkill on the sidewalk, I'm going to have to bow out on this one because I've never seen it.
All right. Elizabeth, I'll pass the red balloons to you.
Okay. I'm someone who actually saw the Scared, the new version, because I apparently cannot say the actor's name for this version. I think they are in both performances fairly comparable. But with Tim Curry coming first, I feel like he really kicked off the killer clown genre that ran through movies, because we can, look at some vintage photographs and go, oh, there's some creepy clowns. But the idea of the creepy clown as a character in movies, I think really started with it. And a lot of it visually seems to be taken off of Pennywise, from the sharpened teeth. Look at the sharp teeth. You're seeing all the clowns and the killer clowns from outer space, which is a great movie.
Yes,
I was trying to remember because I think it actually predates Pennywise.
it does.
Because I want to say
and
Killer Clowns is 85, 86.
Oh man,
No,
I actually thought Pennywise was older.
Nope.
Now I got to look.
The book is probably older.
Yeah, I think
That's
the
probably
yes.
part of what's. That's probably part
Killer
of what's
Clowns is
tripping me up.
88.
88. All right.
That's probably part of what was tripping me up, is the book is older than the TV movie.
But yes, I think in a lot of ways, you're absolutely right. It's definitely informed the creepy clown that we have today.
Especially with how, as I said, I grew up after the TV movie came out. There was a lot of creepy clowns in children's horror entertainment. Think Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and all that. And you can look at those depictions and go, I can see the Pennywise that they are referencing in those depictions. So,
Jamie? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
also, I was going to mention that some of the scenes are pretty darn funny, and with him as a clown, and I think coming from a comedy background helped with keeping Pennywise from being utterly dour, which is what real risk you would run with having a different actor who doesn't bring as much frenetic energy. I mean, I've seen some really bad slashers.
You got to have fun if you're going to be evil.
And he does.
Jamie, how about for you?
Well, again, a lot of good stuff already said. I think I'm going to go with this bit, though, and this is playing off of extending what Elizabeth said. You just have to look at how the designs of, especially like the new version of it, the new remake, and just how there have been some earlier Killer Clown things, but the designs of all later Killer Clowns definitely model, and not just in appearance, but in attitude and in basically very much attempt to follow in the footsteps of Tim Curry's performance and look specifically. It's because clowns have always been something that people, there's a reason there's a phobia of clowns. It's not even an uncommon one. Clowns, produce that effect, which is why I think they've been picked up in horror and suspense stuff, even before it. But after his performance and his look, it kind of codified. It's like codifying the trope, right? And so everything you see after that really follows more that than something like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which, is also really good, but it didn't quite codify things like Tim Curry's performance did.
I think it's because of it being a TV miniseries, and it got a significant amount of replay afterwards. Probably allowed for that codification compared to Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Which
incredible performance
was really thankful just for HBO. And I keep hoping for the sequel they keep threatening to do. But I think that, and then I'm coming to you, Jenny. But one of the other things that I think really was important was this was made for TV and creeped people out this effectively made for TV. Okay, Jenny, now you can give us.
I, like Michael, avoid horror because I believe it. I think it's real when I watch it. I also am terrified of clowns. It's calorophobia, and I have it. The scariest thing to me about Pennywise is there was one clown and only one clown I trusted, and his name was Bozo.
I remember Bozo.
Yes. Do you remember what Bozo looked like, kids? Bozo
Like
looks
him.
like Pennywise. Okay.
They ruined that.
That's why it's so damn scary, is the one common positive clown we grew up with, or your parents and grandparents referred to fondly, maybe showed you on TV. Oh, that's a Bozo. No. Oh, that's Pennywise. Now the hair's a little bit different, but not different enough. I took one look at that and said, every nightmare I've ever had, we're done. All it needed was snakes. And I was, done. So yeah, no.
There was the can of snakes.
Oh, of course there are. But yeah, no. After Bozo is when I really started realizing that clowns just look utterly freaky. And then one look at it was like, yeah, I never need to see another clown again. Thank you.
My fear of clowns started with the movie Poltergeist and that little doll, that clown doll that was going around his room.
I crawled under the seats in the theater in Hollywood. Okay, it's not a clean theater. I just want to mention I was under the seats in Poltergeist, and that was the movie where I said I'm never going to one of these willingly again ever in my
That
life.
movie freaked
Who are you dating for that one?
Not the man I married.
Wise choice.
The man I married does not take me to horror. In fact, she would see.
He knows better.
So, Carole,
He's not going to hurt me.
I'm sorry. We've covered a lot of kind of the quintessential Tim Curry major roles, but there's so many more. So, out of the rest of the filmography, what's another favorite film in memory for you for Tim Curry?
Can we count voice work?
We're not there yet.
Okay. Oh gosh. I
have two.
give me one of them. No.
I'm not sharing.
You need a lifeline?
Yeah.
Call a friend.
I was
Call IMDb.
I was looking through IMDb earlier just to kind of brush up, and I'm flummoxed. I was so busy thinking about Pennywise and Frankenfurter as so.
Well, didn't you mention Annie?
I did mention Annie, and I'll tell you what, I hate Annie.
Oh, I was little. I liked it.
Didn't like the comic strip.
Okay.
Thought the movie was just like, really? If I never hear the sun will come up tomorrow, it'll be a happy, happy day for me. However,
Easy Street.
What?
Easy Street. That's
Easy Street.
Yeah.
The Hard Knock Life.
And Carole
But
Burnett.
it was really a bright little moment to see him as the slimy. Was he the boyfriend? I think of the woman.
Carole Burnett. I think it's Carole Burnett.
Right, and she was this workhouse woman, but he just oozed smarm and slime, and he had I believe he had like this horrid orangey brown suit or something, and I had to watch this movie several times with my children. They're much older and wiser now. And that was always like the bright moment for me, was watching him come on the screen and just do his dastardly stuff and sing a song, because I just adore his voice so much. And then I was like, okay, I'm leaving the room again.
Just look for the YouTube clip now. I'm sure there's one somewhere.
Yep.
All right, Michael.
It's hard to pick one. I love the scene in Oscar where he sits down across from Stallone and puts the pen in his mouth and just looks like he's a begging dog almost. His role as Vladikov in McHale's Navy. But I think my favorite comes back to Rocky Horror because I love hearing Tim sing. So Muppet Treasure Island.
Okay.
Mhm.
which made me really wish they cast him instead of Dustin Hoffman in Hook, because I would love to have seen Tim Curry go up against Robin Williams.
Oh,
That
yeah.
would have been better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, Elizabeth, what you got?
Well, I will mention that Muppet Treasure Island was banned from my house growing up because apparently it terrified 4-year-old me
Oh.
because I didn't like people dangling off cliffs.
Oh.
Home Alone 2, when he's the hotel bellhop, and if you know that scene, you know what I'm referring to.
Jamie?
I'm going to throw in a second for Muppet Treasure Island. Tim Curry makes a great pirate, which when we get to the animation time, we'll bring up again.
Jenny?
I got two. One's Muppet Treasure Island, like the meme says, the two best actors to ever act with the Muppets. Michael Caine, because he treats the Muppets like they're regular Shakespearean actors, and Tim Curry, because he treats himself like he's a Muppet.
Well put. Well put.
Mhm.
It's so fun. He's so fun in it. He really makes it. But the other thing, The Shadow, supporting a supporting player in The Shadow, which was supposed to launch a franchise and didn't. Alec Baldwin, young and thinner, Penelope Ann Miller, and John Lone as the bad guy. But Tim Curry is the secondary bad guy. And not only is he smarmy, but he has a totally I go bonkers scene that he does just so well. And you're just like, this is so over the top. And yet at the same time, oh my God, you completely buy that this guy's just gone literally barking, frothing mad. He's a great addition to what was actually a really good movie, but just, it was at the time when all the, like the Phantom and other things, other superhero movie launches just weren't getting the traction. It really did take X-Men to get that for us. But The Shadow is actually really good, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's a period piece, so it's aged very well because you don't feel any squick with, well, that doesn't happen anymore, because it's set in the 20s and 30s, somewhere in there. But he's fabulous, and it's a really good cast, and he really makes the most of his role.
Lola?
There was a movie that came out in 92, and I remember I loved it. For some reason, I just loved this movie. It was called Passed Away. And I can't even tell you why I liked it. I looked at the synopsis on IMDb, and I was like, that sounds lame. And I haven't seen it since then, so I can't even tell you what it was about. I just remember I loved it. And so now I got to find it and see and try to figure out why I loved it. Besides Tim Curry, I have no idea why I loved it so much. So I've got homework.
Well, I'm going to throw one out there because, and I saw it in a theater. I remember going and seeing this in the Dollar Theater because that's really what it was worth. But the Musketeers, the Kiefer Sutherland, the whole new Brat Pack, but his Cardinal Richelieu, was just tripping. And I remember that, and I haven't seen the movie since 1990, whatever that was. The one time I watched it in the theater. But yes,
there was actually a moment in that movie where I'm pretty sure the director overruled Tim's timing, because he does that, I prefer dead thing, but he shouts it, where Tim Curry would have been, I prefer dead.
All right. So I'm going to throw one last one out there at you guys. And this is an open mosh pit. This is against my better judgment. However,
you fool.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time I've made poor choices with this particular audience. So voice work, animation, games, whatever else. What's your favorite?
Can we just?
Where are we starting? I'm just jumping in. Then I'm jumping in.
It's a mosh pit.
I'm in Peter Pan the Pirates, Block's animated series. He played Captain Hook. Oh my god. Oh my god. The man should have played way more pirates. I mean, the world would have been a better place. The hook, when you mentioned the Hook thing, I'm like, yes, because he's a really, really good Captain Hook. So it would have been amazing.
Yeah, I would love for him to have been able to be in the Pirates of the Caribbean series.
Paradise Garage, which is a great album, had two big hits, I Do the Rock and Paradise Garage. But the whole album is actually very good. And I believe it was recorded either right after or right before Rocky Horror, but they came out with 3 Tim Curry albums very quickly to capitalize on it. The other 2 that come out are okay. Yes, I own them all. But Paradise Garage is really good all the way through, but nothing's better than Paradise Garage itself, even though I Do the Rock is a good number 2. It's voice work and he's singing.
Sir Nigel Archibald Thornberry, Knight of the British Empire from the Wild Thornberrys. I loved that animation anyway because it was very inventive and out of the box for, a children's animation and all. But he just had that plummy voice here in the middle of like the deserts of Africa or in all these exotic places where all kinds of kooky things are happening, and he's just kind of soldiering on. Everything's going to be fine, playing the stalwart father of the Thornberry family, and I loved hearing him in that. I just thought he really did a great character for that. Pretty much anytime you're watching anything and you hear his voice, you're like, it's like a dog, going on point. Huh? It's Tim Curry. But I really, really enjoyed him on that particular show, The Wild Thornberrys.
Michael.
I was about to say, for those who have not seen it after this panel, go to YouTube, type in Command and Conquer 3, Tim Curry, and learn why we're all going to go to space.
Yes. Yeah.
Michael.
So, to go back to your desire to see Tim Curry versus Robin Williams, Hexus from Ferngully.
True.
And again, we're back to singing.
Yep. Lola?
Not that he wasn't great in Gargoyles, too.
True.
Yes.
Can't remember any voice work. I got more homework to do.
So one of the random roles I found he played was a AI husband henchman to an evil scientist on Captain Planet.
Mm.
Yeah. God, that brings back memories.
Well, and much was mentioned earlier. He did get his shot at being Palpatine, so
Can we toss in TV guest roles?
sure. We'll do another bonus round just to make you happy.
I'm going to toss out my 2 favorites. The first, he's in a Hercule Poirot. I don't even remember the name of it, though I've seen it multiple times. It's set in Egypt on a dig, and it's a very serious role. There's no comedy in it whatsoever. He ends up being the husband of the murder victim, and he's very bereaved. And it's really a very good dramatic role for him. You almost, other than the voice, and it's clearly him, it's not of he is a support. He does not overshadow David Suchet, who is playing Poirot. He is right where he is supposed to be in the ensemble, but he's really good.
He knows the assignment.
Yes, he does. He is in Psych, the American Duos episode, and he is basically playing Simon Cowell, and he is hilarious. It is so funny. Obviously he's older in these roles, but he is biting and vicious with a smile. Oh, it's so good. So if you haven't seen Psych, it's a very funny show, and American Duos is like one of our favorite episodes because it's starring Tim Curry as one of the guest stars.
On Monk, he portrays Dale the Whale Biederbeck. Dale the Whale is a bad guy, of course, because Monk is after him. And he plays an enormous person. You never see him. He's on a bed in like these brilliant crimson, like silk pajamas. And really all you have is Tim Curry's head, because of course the body is fake. And so they have his head coming through on top. So, but of course, you know, he's there, he is lying and taunting Monk and waxing with his devilish humor. And it's just great. All you've got is his head. And it's just really a brilliant little guest spot that just was such a treat.
All right. Any other guest spots we've got to bring up while we're at it?
No, but I did see something on Reddit when I was looking under our movies, and I was looking for Tim Curry movies, and someone said any movie that he was in that had a 1-star rating, it had that 1 star because of him. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no lies.
He brings the star.
Mm-hmm. Well, in that case, before the mansion goes off into space, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys, you know, website, social media, that latest book you need to go. And if you happen to have a character inspired by Tim Curry, you may as well push that one too. So Michael, you're up first.
Okay, so you can always find me at deliriousscribbles.com. I've got the new 3rd book in the Dumpster Mancer series on Kickstarter live right now. It's kickstarter.com/projects/DSII/Dumpster Mancer 3.
Elizabeth?
You can find me at deadfishbooks.com, and that's a good reminder that I need to get back to writing an essay about how Rocky Horror Picture Show is what Ed Wood always wished he was able to direct. And I'd probably write something about how clowns actually do perfectly capture the edge of horror and comedy.
Jamie?
Right, you can find my stuff, jbgarnerwrites.com, jbgarnerwrites on most social media. I am happy to say that I have 3 books coming out this year, published by Ginger Blue Publishing. Indomitable, a superhero book that came out in April. Next month, I have Songs and Sorcery, Film Noir meets high fantasy. At the end of the year, I have Figment by Imagination, which is an urban fantasy comedy caper.
Jenny?
GiniKoch.com. I'm all over Facebook. If you'd like to join my free newsletter, hook me up. You can do so from my main Facebook fan page, Hairspray Rock and Roll. I'm on X, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Pinterest. My most recent releases, the anthology Familiars, which just came out from Zombie Meets Brains, which has a story by me and my co-author, B.B. Bayless, in it, Have Voodoo Will Travel. And from Ginger Blue, this just came out in June, by me writing Zae Stanton, which is Natural Born Outlaws, Legend of Belladonna, Book 1. And in November, BB and I have another book coming out from Ginger Blue. It's the first in our Santa Paloma mystery series, Something Wicked.
Lola?
I'm Lola Lariscy. I'm LolaLariscy.com, Facebook, not Twitter anymore, Instagram. I've finally finished. I'm a very slow writer, and I procrastinate a lot. So I finally finished my 2nd book, and I sent it to people to read. And as soon as that's shaken out, it's going to go to someone to format, and I have the person that's supposed to start doing the cover soon. And then eventually, by the next century, it will be ready.
1 book a century. We're fine. Carole?
So Carole Stokes, you'll find me a lot on Facebook and on many continual panels. And as Ellis Colton, my most recent book, The Silver Dragon, is out on Amazon and Smashwords. And my new book, my Paranormal Romance, The Case of Thistledown House, will be out in the beginning of October. And all my social media links and sign up for newsletter are at elliscolton.card.co. So that's CARRD.co.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, creatingpros.com, and here at ConTinual. And hopefully next time I'll have a voice back.
It's suitably husky for this topic.
He's been saying that for a few panels. I have my doubts.